If someone had told her that jealousy could make girls dig a hole just to bury her, she'd have laughed. But now, looking back, she realized that envy wears the softest smile and speaks in the sweetest tone before it strikes. Her name was Ogma, though in her small village, people called her Beauty, the beauty of the gods. She never asked for that name, she never wanted attention. But somehow, from the moment she was old enough to fetch water at the stream, the world noticed that before she even noticed herself. She was her parents' only child. They weren't rich, just humble farmers with a tiny hut surrounded by cassava and yam ridges. Her mother, Nne, was the kind of woman whose laughter made even a bad day feel lighter. Her father was a hardworking man who believed silence solved everything. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful, until other people's opinions started shaping her reality. The trouble began slowly. Whenever she walked past the village square, some girls would giggle and whisper. At first, she thought it was harmless. But one afternoon, while fetching water at the stream, she heard one of them hiss. See how she walks, like she owns the whole village, just because her face fine small. She turned to look at them. Anna, Olivia, and Banta. Three girls who always moved like a pack. Their eyes carried a mix of amusement and venom. She smiled awkwardly, hoping kindness would make things better, but it didn't. From that day, they made her their daily topic. It became normal to hear things like, "Beauty, fine girl no be achievement oh. Do you think the prince will marry you because your skin shines?" Sometimes, they even mimicked her walk. She'd go home pretending she didn't care, but the moment she closed her door, the tears came. Her mother noticed. She always noticed. "My daughter," Nne would say, brushing her head gently. "Even sweet honey attracts jealous flies. Don't dim your light because others can't handle it." Her words were comforting, but they didn't stop the pain. Being beautiful in a small village felt like a curse. One day, the teasing got so bad that she begged her mother to let her skip the next market day. Nne agreed, thinking rest would help. But that was when things took a darker turn. The girls started calling her names like Snake Girl and Spirit Child. They would whisper that her beauty wasn't normal, that her mother must have gone to a shrine to make her attractive. Soon, other villagers began to avoid her too. Nne was furious when she heard the rumors. She said, "They will not destroy my child's name because of jealousy." But her father, ever the quiet one, told her to calm down. People always talk. Let them talk. She wanted to believe him, but it's hard to ignore this thing when even children at the stream laugh behind your back. After a while, her mother stopped sending her to the market altogether. She said she didn't want her getting into fights or being humiliated. So, she stayed home most days, helping on the farm or cooking, but staying away only made her lonelier. She could hear the girls laughing together whenever they passed by their compound. Sometimes, she'd peep through the bamboo fence, watching them chat and sing as they walked to the village square. She wanted that too, friendship, belonging. Then came the day everything changed. The town crier beat his gong and announced that the prince was ready to choose a wife. There will be a grand dance at the palace and every unmarried girl in the village was invited. The whole place buzzed with excitement. Women started sewing new wrappers, girls began practicing dance moves. She didn't plan to go. She knew what waited her there, mockery. But her mother wouldn't hear of it. Mama, you will go," she said firmly. "Don't let fear cage your destiny. Who knows, the gods may smile on you that day." So, she started preparing quietly. She found a beautiful wrapper in her mother's box. Nne even gave her one of her cowrie necklaces. "You look like a queen," she said, smiling proudly. But while she was dreaming of a beautiful occasion, others were plotting her downfall. The girls, Anna, Olivia, and Banta, met the next morning at the stream. "Do you think Beauty will come to the dance?" Banta asked. "It better not," Olivia replied. "If she shows up, no one will even look at us. The prince will choose her instantly. Then we make sure she doesn't come," Anna said. Their plan started with pretending to like her. A few days later, they came to her house, smiling from ear to ear, carrying roasted groundnuts and fruit as a peace offering. She almost fainted from surprise. They said they were sorry for how they treated her, that they had grown up and wanted to be friends. Her mother, Nne, didn't believe it for 1 second. She pulled her daughter aside that evening and said, "Ogma, be careful. Snakes don't change. They just shed skin." But Beauty's heart was tired of loneliness. She wanted to believe people could change. The girl started visiting almost every day. They'd laugh with her, braid her hair, and compliment her dance steps. She began to trust them again, even though something in Une's eyes said she shouldn't. One afternoon, while they were at her house, she showed them the outfit she planned to wear to the dance. They gasped and said it was beautiful. "You look like a goddess," Banta said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't notice then, but that was the smile of a wolf admiring its prey. Later, they gathered outside whispering to each other. They decided to dig a pit in the bush, and they would lure Beauty there on the day of the ceremony. They would push her into the pit, injuring her and ruining her chances of participating in the ceremony. The girls set out to the bush, carrying shovels and hoes. They began to dig using the sharp tools to break through the earth. They toiled for days, sweating and grunting as they walked. Their hatred for Beauty fueled their determination, and they kept digging until the pit was deep and wide enough for their plan. The morning of the dance arrived, and Nne woke her early. She hugged her tightly and whispered, "Don't follow them anywhere. Go to the palace alone. I had a strange dream." Beauty promised she'd be careful. Nne headed to the palace to join the other women in cooking for the occasion. A few hours later, she saw the girls walking towards their compound, all dressed in bright colors, looking like flowers in full bloom. "Beauty," Olivia called, "we came to go with you. Let's take a shortcut through the bush. We don't want anyone seeing our clothes before we reach the palace." She hesitated, but my mother said, Don't tell me you're still listening to that old woman's superstitions," Anna interrupted, rolling her eyes. "We're all friends now, aren't we?" Beauty smiled weakly. Her heart said, "Don't go," but her mind said they've changed. They walked together, laughing, talking about how the prince might look. Beauty felt happy, genuinely happy for the first time in months. Then, as they got deeper into the bush, the laughter died down. The path grew narrow and quiet. She noticed the bird had stopped singing. Her chest tightened, but before she could ask why they were taking that particular route, Anna turned and said, "This way, Beauty, the path is smoother." When she stepped forward, she didn't see it coming. The ground gave way beneath her. She screamed, a scream so loud it felt like it tore the air apart, and she fell into a deep pit. Her legs hit something hard. Pain shot through her. She looked up, dazed, covered in dirt, her head spinning. Above her, the girl stood at the edge of the hole, staring down with cruel smiles. "Look at you, Beauty," Anna said. "The village beauty, the queen-to-be. You want to dance, right? Dance there." They burst into laughter, their voices echoing through the trees. Her heart pounded. "Please, help me," she begged, her voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" But they just watched her. "You think you're better than us?" Olivia sneered. "Let's see if the prince will still want you now." And with that, they turned their backs and walked away. She screamed until her voice cracked, clawing at the walls of the pit, but it was too deep. The sky slowly dimmed as the sun began to set, and she was left there, broken, shivering, surrounded by darkness. And that was when it hit her. She was trapped, and no one was coming to save her. And she knew she was in serious trouble. Beauty's mother anxiously waited in the palace, but her daughter never arrived. She asked the other girls if they had seen her, but they claimed not to know where she was. They continued dancing and celebrating, oblivious to the worry and fear that was beginning to grip Beauty's mother. She knew something was wrong, and she was growing increasingly concerned for her daughter. She went to find Beauty's father, hoping he might have seen her, but he shook his head and said he hadn't seen her since they left the house earlier in the day. As Nne stood in the palace, trying to make sense of her daughter's absence, she remembered how excited Beauty had been about the ceremony. She remembered how she had been practicing and perfecting her dance moves for days. She couldn't believe that Beauty would simply choose not to come. Filled with fear and worry, she implored her husband to race home with her to see if Beauty was there. They both knew that something was terribly wrong. Meanwhile, the prince watched the maidens dance, but he felt no connection to any of them. Something in his heart told him that none of the girls were his future wife. He turned to his father and said, "I have not found my bride." The king halted the music and announced to the crowd that the prince had no wife. The crowd stared in disbelief, and the maiden stood frozen in shock. The jealous girls were filled with rage and disappointment, and their legs trembled with anger. Beauty's parents rushed back to the palace, their hearts racing with fear. They reported to the king that their daughter was missing, and the king grew concerned. Mne told the king about the girls who were to come pick her up for the occasion. The king summoned the girls, Anna, Banta, and Olivia, and they all claimed to have no idea where Beauty was. The king sent his guards out to search for the village and the surrounding areas for Beauty, but the guards returned empty-handed. Mne wailed in grief, tears streaming down her face as she held her husband close. The king promised to send more guards out at first light, but Mne could not sleep that night. She lay awake, clutching her husband's hand, praying for her daughter's safe return. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, a man named Dinta prepared to hunt for the day. Dinta was a skilled hunter who provided meat for the palace every day, and this morning was no different. He ventured into the thick bush, and as he did, he heard a faint cry for help. "Please, someone help me! Is anyone there? Please help me!" The voice pleaded. Dinta was puzzled. Who could be in the thick forest so early in the morning? He followed the voice and discovered a deep pit where a girl was trapped inside. She was exhausted from shouting for help. He immediately started lowering a rope down into the pit to pull her out. The girl, whom Dinta recognized as Beauty, was weak and trembling. She asked for some water, and Dinta gave her a drink. He knew that her parents would be worried sick about her, and he wanted to get her back to them as soon as possible. But on the way to the village, he had a change of heart. He decided to take Beauty to the palace instead. So he changed course and headed for the palace. When they arrived, Dinta told the king everything he had seen and heard, and presented Beauty to him. When her parents arrived at the palace, they were stunned to see their daughter in such a state. Beauty explained what had happened the day before. The king, queen, and her parents were horrified by what they heard. The king was furious that anyone could do such a thing, and he vowed to find the girls and punish them for their actions. Beauty's parents were finally relieved that their daughter was safe. The king summoned the town crier and ordered him to gather everyone at the palace as soon as possible. The town crier went from house to house shouting the king's message. When everyone had gathered, the king asked the girls to step forward. He asked them if they knew Beauty, but they all denied it. "We know her, but she is not our friend," they said, looking down at their feet. The king's face turned red with anger, and he asked them to look him in the eye and tell the truth. One of the girls, seeing the king's anger, started to tremble. She looked up at him, her eyes filling with tears. "We're sorry," she whispered. "We were jealous of Beauty, and our mother always told us that we should be more like her, so we decided to teach her a lesson. We brought her to the forest and pushed her into the pit. We didn't mean to hurt her, we just wanted to scare her." The other girls started crying too, and they all begged for forgiveness, but it was too late. The king was determined to punish them for what they had done. The king turned to his guards and ordered them to take the girls away. "Lock them up for a long time," he said, his voice cold and hard. "And when they are released, they are not to be spoken to by anyone in the village. No one is to sell to them or buy from them. Anyone who associates with them will suffer the same punishment." The crowd watched in silence as the king finished speaking. But then the prince stepped forward. He turned to the crowd and announced, "I have found a wife. She is here with us today." The crowd murmured in confusion. Who could the prince be talking about? Then the prince walked over to Beauty and lifted her to her feet. He brushed the dirt from her dress and gave her a warm hug. The crowd erupted in cheers, and the jealous girls hung their heads in shame. The girls were led away sobbing and pleading for mercy, but it was too late. The king's decision was final. Dinta was rewarded by the king. Beauty's destiny had been fulfilled despite their attempts to sabotage it.